we have a simple data class which holds three attributes, which is company name, price of the stock, and the number of shares. So with this, we can create any instances of these data classes. For example, I am using this data class stock to create a holding for Apple shares. And I'm passing in all the three variables. And with that, I will be able to print my data class. And as you can see, it prints out a nice wrapper representation of the instance, and it shows all the arguments or all the attributes of this class. And also, with this, we saw in the previous chapter, we can use or the other way to put it is data classes builds the constructor, and it also creates a nice wrapper for us, and it also creates like, for example, equality operators and comparison operators and so on. So all of these are done internally, and we just have to add a decorator like this data class to any any class we want to build, and all of this is taken care internally. Now let's go and understand this data class in depth. So first we'll understand what are the arguments we can pass to a data class. So data class decorator takes in multiple keyword argument, and we have seen already one of them, which is frozen. So if I in the previous chapter I talked about frozen. So in the if you say frozen equal to true, and if you pass that keyword argument to the data class decorator, then you will not be able to modify your attributes outside. So which is basically the object or the class object becomes immutable. Right. So similar to that, we have multiple many other keyword argument. Let's understand each of them in this chapter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use help to find out what are the keyword argument which data class decorator takes. So if you see here in the screen here, so we have many keyword arguments here. So like I mentioned previously, we already saw what frozen does, and by default the frozen is set to false. That means if you don't mention frozen keyword, if you just use data class decorator, you will be able to the object becomes object will be a mutable object, so you can change modify your attributes. Now like that, there are other keyword arguments here, like there is init, there is wrapper, equal, and order, unsafe hash, and so on. So what does init does? So right now, as you can see, init is set to true. That means the data class automatically generates init for us. Now, if you mention init equal to false, then so if you mention init equal to true, even if you implement any init yourself, like for example, if I go here and say def init something, and let's say I say self something ABC variable, and if I do something here, all of this will be ignored, because if we are setting init to true, that means we are going to the data class is going to ignore the init implemented by the user. It's going to use the init implementation which it has internally, right? So if you are planning to, let's say, change the init, if you don't want the inbuilt init to be used by the class data class, then you have to mention init equal to false. So, and second one is wrapper. So again, wrapper is basically wrapper is again a dunder method. It's basically written like this. So I can say underscore wrapper. This is called dunder wrapper method. And what you can do is you can simply print something which is a very nice representation of this class. But if you don't, if you keep the wrapper keyword argument as true, which is by the default, then the data class will automatically generate a nice representation for us. So if you want to write your own representation, you have to set this to false. Then comes equal operator. So again, equal is by default set to true. And if you, for example, implement your own dunder equal method, it's going to be ignored if you set to dunder equal to true. So if you want your own implementation of dunder equal, then you have to set this to false. Then comes order. So order is by default set to false. If you set this to true, then the Python is going to raise exception if the equal evaluates to a false value. Right? And last but not least, we have unsafe hash, which is basically set to false. If you set to true, then it's going to generate hash for us. Then, like I talked about the frozen previously. So frozen is set to false by default. But if you want to make the objects immutable, then you have to set it to true. So this is mostly these are the main keyword arguments which are available for us to play with in the data class decorator. So So we will understand other things, which is basically how can we use immutable objects in the attributes. All of this we'll talk about in next chapter. So in this chapter